Welcome back to MHS, Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you turn to these videos as a gentle way to unwind and ease into sleep. So, before you drift off tonight, could you help me with a small favor? Just leave a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. My goal is to hit around 200 likes within the first 24 hours. Simple actions like these help YouTube appreciate the content and spread the show to more people. Now then, let's dive into tonight's horror stories. A few months ago, I would have thought that stopping my car in the rain was just a kind gesture. But just a few hours later, I realized I had invited the man who wanted to kill me into my home. The story began a few months ago. I had just driven away from Mountain View Cemetery in Fremont, California. I would have stayed longer, but I noticed it was about to rain. I drove for a while, and it started pouring. As my car went around a bend, I saw a figure on the side of the road. It was a man, waving for a ride. He was shivering from the cold. He must have been standing there for a long time. I slowed down and pulled over. He quickly ran over and opened the car door, soaking the seat with rainwater. He had a thin face, a bushy beard, deep-set eyes, and looked like he hadn't slept in days. I handed him a towel to dry off. He nodded in thanks and took it. I started driving again. Throughout the trip, I tried to make some small talk, asking where he was from or what he did for work, but I only got shakes of his head or short answers. He just kept staring out the window, his hands tightly clasped together. As we neared my house, I asked, "I'm almost home. Where do you want me to drop you off?" He turned to look at me, his eyes looking tired. "Could you let me come in and rest for a bit? I've been walking all day." I hesitated. I never take strangers home, but it was still raining hard and he looked genuinely exhausted. "Okay, but I can only let you stay for a little while." When we got inside, I showed him a seat in the living room and went to get him a set of old clothes to change into. Then I went to the kitchen to make a hot cup of tea. While waiting for the water to boil, I remembered his face. There was something familiar about it, as if I had seen him somewhere before, but I couldn't place it. "I forgot to ask your name," I called out, but there was no answer. I peeked into the living room. No one was there. I turned off the stove and went out. The chair was still wet from his clothes, but he was gone. Confused, I walked around the house, calling out to him. I went upstairs. The bathroom was empty. The office was empty. Finally, I stopped in front of the bedroom door. The door was ajar, even though I was sure I had closed it earlier. I pushed the door open and froze. He was standing in front of the vanity, holding a picture frame that I always kept there. It was a photo of Mary and me. There were other pictures of her on the table. "You loved her so much?" His voice had completely changed. It was cold and full of hatred. He turned around, and we looked at each other closely, and then the memory flooded back. Gary Williams, Mary's ex-husband. He looked like a different person, but he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He should be in jail. "Gary? How are you?" I whispered. "Surprised, Dave? You thought I'd sit in prison for 20 years? I took a deep breath. "I didn't steal Mary from you. When we started, you two were almost done with the divorce." "What the hell is a divorce? She was still my wife. You had an affair with her, you bastard," he roared. Gary pulled a knife from his jacket. "Now it's your turn." He lunged, and a struggle began. The blade cut through my right shoulder, showing the white bone through the deep wound, and blood started gushing out. Gary became more aggressive and continued to attack. At that moment, I had no other choice. I lunged toward the wardrobe, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a gun, my hand shaking as I released the safety catch. I pulled the trigger. The first shot hit his shoulder, and he still advanced. I pulled the trigger again. The second shot hit his chest. Gary stopped, then crumpled to the floor. I checked his pulse. Gary was dead. I was silent for a few minutes, then called the police to turn myself in. Gary Williams escaped from prison 3 days ago. He killed a guard during his escape. We were hunting for him, an officer told me. The trial took place a month later. I was fully acquitted. The judge confirmed that I had acted in legal self-defense. I didn't feel happy, but I felt incredibly relieved. Right after the trial, I went back to the cemetery to visit Mary. The California afternoon sun peeked through the clouds. I knelt before Mary's grave and placed a bouquet of white roses, her favorite flower. I told Mary what had happened and then burst into tears. It had been almost 2 years since I lost her. If I had been more decisive that day, not letting her go to meet her cruel ex-husband, Gary, we might have had a happy family with children. A light breeze blew through the cemetery, causing dry leaves to fly up and then fall onto her grave. I sat there until it got dark. On the way home, I didn't stop for anyone else. If I had been more careful when choosing a place to live that day, I probably wouldn't have woken up on an operating table. It started 3 months ago when I decided to leave Cleveland, Ohio. My job had fallen apart, and my rent was piling up. I needed a fresh start somewhere with a lower cost of living. Dayton seemed like a good fit. It was a quiet city, and still in the same state, so I could visit family. The first thing I needed to do was find a place to live. I scrolled through apartment and rental pages, and most of them were out of my reach. Then I saw a post looking for a roommate. It was a 2-bedroom apartment on Oak Street, near downtown, with a rent that was half the average price. The apartment currently had one occupant, a guy named Vince, who made the post. We exchanged a few simple messages, and I quickly moved in with him. On moving day, I parked my rental truck in front of a 3-story red brick building. The apartment was on the 2nd floor. Vince opened the door after the first knock. He was tall and thin with long brown hair that almost covered his eyes. The first thing that struck me was Vince's unusually wide smile. His voice was a little high-pitched and slightly shaky. His hand was cold and clammy when we shook hands. Vince didn't say much about himself, and I was hesitant to ask. The apartment was bigger than I expected. A large living room with a window overlooking the street. The kitchen was small but functional. My bedroom had a single bed and a wardrobe. There was a faint, musty, foul smell. I figured it was because the room hadn't been used. The first few days passed quite peacefully. I worked the afternoon and evening shift at a restaurant near downtown, usually getting home around 11 p.m. Vince was usually in his room with the door closed. The musty, foul odor I noticed at first didn't go away. It became more and more pronounced. I opened the windows and lit scented candles, but it didn't help. The smell was especially strong near Vince's room. On a day off when Vince was also home, I couldn't stand the smell anymore, so I asked him about it. Vince, who was in the kitchen, turned back with that familiar smile and explained that he was working on a dissection research project on small animals, like rats and birds. He wanted to understand their internal structure. Better rats than people, right? Vince chuckled softly and walked into his room. I stood there watching him go, thinking my roommate was incredibly strange. After living with Vince for almost a month, I decided to find another place. I had saved enough money for a security deposit. I told Vince about it, and he didn't say anything, but he did mention he was going home to visit his family that weekend. I figured he wasn't happy about me moving out, so I just kept quiet. I breathed a sigh of relief, finally getting a quiet night to myself. That evening, as I was sitting on the sofa, I was startled by a sound at the front door. I turned off the TV and listened. It was a key turning in the lock. Maybe Vince had come home early. I stood up, ready to greet him. The door opened, but instead of Vince, I saw a tall, dark figure in a hoodie, his face covered by a white mask. Before I could react, he lunged. I tried to run to the kitchen, but my foot caught the edge of the table, and I tumbled to the floor. In the next second, a strong blow to my head sent me into darkness. When I woke up, I found myself tied tightly to a metal table. I was in a small room with no windows, lit by a single overhead bulb. The concrete walls were bare and damp. The stench was so overwhelming it made me want to throw up. Around the table were metal shelves full of glass jars. Inside were dark brown fragments, suspended in a clear fluid. On another table, I saw surgical tools, scalpels, pliers, scissors. My mouth was taped shut, leaving me to only make muffled sounds of helplessness. From a dark corner, a voice began to hum a sweet melody that, in this context, was horrifying. The singer emerged from the shadows and walked closer. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Vince with his familiar smile. But this time, it was more grotesque, with wide, bulging eyes filled with a look of sheer delight. Better people than rats, right, Mike? Without a word, he picked up a folding knife from the tool table and opened it. Vince placed the tip of the blade on the skin of my stomach. I tensed, struggling in desperation. The blade began to cut into my skin, and a searing pain hit me, feeling the warm blood ooze out. I was helpless, and so desperate I started to cry. Suddenly, I felt the rope on my right wrist loosen slightly, probably because I was sweating so much. I tried to twist my wrist. Vince had turned away to grab a tool, mumbling something about a perfect specimen. After a few minutes of struggling, my right hand finally came free. I immediately sat up, grabbed a knife from the tool table, and stabbed him in the shoulder. Vince screamed, stumbling backward, clutching his shoulder. He became enraged at the sight of his own blood, yelling hysterically. I quickly untied myself and ran. After I got out, I realized that the horror room was Vince's bedroom. I pressed hard on the wound to stop the bleeding, staggering down the deserted street. I saw a light at a nearby house and crawled toward it. I pounded on the door. A middle-aged woman opened it. She was in a panic when she saw my state. "Please, call the police." I managed to give her my apartment address before collapsing. I woke up in the hospital. A police detective was sitting next to my bed. He told me Vince had been arrested. In the basement, they found more than 20 glass jars containing body parts. Not just from animals. They believed some were human, as they also found photos. Some of them were of victims who had gone missing several years ago. According to forensic reports and medical records, Vince had been diagnosed with paranoid disorder and dissociative personality disorder, but he had never followed through with treatment. He was reclusive, rarely socialized, and had a tendency to become obsessed with human anatomy and controlling others' bodies. The untreated mental illness was the cause of his insane behavior and horrifying crimes. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. My wound wasn't deep, but I lost a lot of blood and needed time to recover psychologically. After being discharged, I found a new place to live. This time, I was much more careful. I met the landlord in person, checked all the paperwork, and talked to the neighbors before making a decision. Vincent Miller was sentenced to life in prison without parole. During the trial, he still had that grotesque smile, as if the whole thing was just an interesting game. I know I was lucky. Lucky that I didn't become the next living specimen in his horrifying collection. When promises of love turn into a nightmare, I'm forced to fight to regain my life and control. I'm Beth, 32 years old. This story happened when I was living in Akron, Ohio. I had a very romantic time dating Kane. He was an engineer at a local company, had a steady income, and was polite to everyone. Kane proposed after 6 months of dating, and I immediately said yes. The first month of our marriage was truly like a paradise. Kane always took care of me, cooked and cleaned the house. He would often hug me from behind and whisper, "You're everything I need." I felt safe in his arms, believing we would grow old together in our small house in the Cleveland suburbs. Everything changed in the second month of our marriage. I woke up with a start to find Kane sitting on a chair next to the bed, holding a small pair of scissors. Scattered on the bed were strands of blonde hair. I immediately sat up. It was my hair. "Kane?" I asked, my voice trembling. my hands instinctively going to my head. One side of my hair had been cut short, close to the scalp. "Good morning, my love," Kane said, staring at me without blinking. "I've been sitting here all night watching you sleep. You sleep so beautifully, especially when I'm cutting your hair." "Why did you do that?" I almost screamed, my voice cracking as I was about to cry. Kane grinned, waving the scissors in his hand. "You look so much cuter now." "Now let's eat breakfast," Kane suddenly yelled. Before I could react, he shoved a large piece of bread into my mouth. I choked, trying to push his hand away, but Kane was stronger. He continued to force bread into my mouth. "Kane, stop!" I tried to yell through the bread, but the sound was just an unintelligible groan. I couldn't breathe. My strength was fading, and my vision began to blur. Kane continued with an expression of delight. The last sound I heard was his insane laughter before everything went dark. I woke up, squinting at the bright lights. I was in a hospital. My throat was sore and dry. Kane sat on the chair next to my bed, his shoulders shaking. "Kane!" I thought he was crying until I saw his face. Kane was smiling, his eyes sparkling like a child who had just received their favorite gift. "You're awake?" he said, feigning concern. "If you're unconscious for too long, I can't play with you anymore, my love." He leaned close to my ear. "Next time you feel like you're about to pass out, let me know in advance. I'll let you rest for a bit." I shivered at my husband's attitude. "Why? Why did you do that?" Kane was silent for a moment, his eyes staring at me. Then he grinned again. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." I stared at Kane in disbelief. Was this really the man who had promised to protect me for the rest of my life? Why had he become like this? Just then, a doctor walked in and said the situation wasn't too serious, but still recommended I stay in the hospital for another night for observation. Kane immediately stood up and squeezed my shoulder tightly. "That's not necessary, doctor. My wife is fine. We're going home." Before I could say anything, Kane pulled me out of the hospital. The next few days were hell on earth. Kane no longer hid his true nature. Every morning I woke up, I didn't know what he would do. One time, he put a lot of salt in a glass and made me drink it all. Another time, he tied me to a chair and dripped cold water on my head for an hour. I tried to escape multiple times, but Kane always found me and dragged me back. He locked all the doors, hid the keys and my phone, and was always by my side to monitor me. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I cried and threatened to call the police. Kane jumped up, his eyes bloodshot, and he yelled, "Shut up. Do you know how happy I am? Don't ruin my mood." In the next second, he calmed down, gently hugged me, and leaned close to my ear. His breath sent a shiver down my spine. "Thank you for agreeing to marry me. Now I can play with you however I want. I've thought of so many fun ways to spend every day with you." "Why?" I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. Kane licked a tear from the corner of my eye, his smile turning insane. "You always smiled. I hated seeing that. From now on, I'll make you cry every day. Your tears are the most delicious thing to me." His insane laughter echoed through the room. I knew if I didn't act immediately, I would die in this house. I grabbed everything within reach, a table lamp, a wedding photo frame, a glass of water, and threw them hard at Kane's face. He staggered back, covering his face with his hands. That was my only chance. I ran to the window, opened it, and jumped out. It was my only option, because I was sure Kane had locked all the doors. Knowing the great risk, I jumped without a second thought. I landed on the first floor awning and then jumped again to the ground. The fall made me roll a few times, feeling pain all over my body. I heard Kane yelling for me to come back. There wasn't much time. I got up, limped to a neighbor's house, and asked for help. The neighbors called the police. I sobbed, telling the police everything, my body a clear and convincing piece of evidence. They immediately issued a temporary protective order and helped me with the divorce proceedings. The next month, I was treated in the hospital for a broken arm and shoulder and severe psychological trauma. At the trial, I wasn't present. I couldn't face Kane. Instead, I followed the trial online. It's a shame. I still have so many things I wanted to do with you. That was the only thing Kane said during the entire trial. I burst into tears, feeling utterly disgusted. What shocked me even more was that after the divorce, I found out Kane had been married before. His first wife had taken her own life. The police concluded it was depression, but the truth behind her death was probably also due to Kane's insanity and cruelty. Kane wasn't looking for a life partner. He was looking for a toy to satisfy his brutality. After 2 years of psychological therapy, I can finally sleep soundly without waking up with a start. I've moved to Columbus and started a new life. I understand that freedom and peace are the most precious things, but not in the arms of or dependent on someone else. They are within myself.
I'm Aiden, and I have just returned after more than 3 months of treatment for psychological trauma from a psychiatric hospital. The cause of everything started with the girlfriend I fell for at first sight, Agatha. She is 3 years older than me, a woman of extraordinary beauty who made it impossible for me to look away. She had large eyes, a small face, long, shiny blonde hair, and a perfectly proportioned figure. I don't know how many times I silently thanked God for meeting and having Agatha. Not only was Agatha beautiful, but she was also very friendly, kind, and an excellent cook. I really wanted to quickly organize a wedding with her and was incredibly excited, imagining our future daughter. But nothing is perfect. Agatha had a very strange and incomprehensible flaw. She always criticized her own body. I completely understood when a girl complained about being overweight or being unhappy with a certain part of her body. But with Agatha, it wasn't just insecurity. She hated herself. Agatha always used terrible words to describe herself, to the point where I imagined her as a monster. Agatha, you are the most beautiful woman. No, Aiden, look at me, she interrupted. These eyes, this nose, are so redundant and ugly. Even these feet, too. There are many people who are not as lucky and well off as us. Stop those silly thoughts. I'm serious. Seeing that my attitude was quite tense, Agatha stood up and left. I really love Agatha, but the more I love her, the more I can't understand her. Things won't be so scary when everything stops at words. Agatha gradually lives the role of a disabled person in a happy and enjoyable state of mind. She is no longer meticulous about her appearance, does not wear makeup or hair. Instead, her face is tightly attached to a pair of sunglasses. Agatha groped everything and asked for help from me because she thought she was blind. Furniture in the house is constantly falling apart and getting damaged. From surprise and helplessness, I gradually turned into discomfort and anger. But Agatha ignored everything. I was even more shocked when I read Agatha's search history. How to remove eyes quickly and with the least pain. Immediately, I pulled Agatha's hand into the dressing room, took off her sunglasses, and let her look straight into the mirror. Look! Why did you make yourself so pathetic? I continued to turn on my phone, which had a beautiful picture of Agatha as the wallpaper. Do you remember how beautiful you used to be? Agatha remained silent, staring into the mirror for a long time, and then slowly closed her eyes and groped her way out. I wanted to scream out loud. If I could, I'd love to see what on earth was going through that small mind of hers. In the following days, I tried to convince Agatha to see a doctor. I was sure my girlfriend was dealing with some kind of mental issue. Agatha would refuse to talk if I mentioned seeing a doctor, and she would even stop eating. I tried to handle it by inviting the doctor to our house, but she locked herself in her room and refused to meet with him. That evening, Agatha and I sat down to have a serious conversation with each other. I'll be going on a business trip for a week. Will you be okay? Of course. It is not the first time you've gone on a business trip, Aiden. Agatha, you know what I'm trying to talk about. Is that really your purpose in life? Agatha looked at me and remained silent. My purpose and dream is to have a happy family with you. I've always imagined a future where we have a daughter as beautiful as you. But Agatha, please, I interrupted her. Please, tell me what your real dream is. I wish I didn't have these eyes. My girlfriend's words felt like a heavy force tightening around my heart. I hate having to see everything, Aiden. I turned and walked into the office, and that entire night, I thought deeply about everything that happened. The next morning, I left the house early to go on my business trip. I left Agatha a handwritten letter asking both of us to reflect on everything and have another conversation when I returned. Throughout the week, I was on my business trip. There were no calls or messages from Agatha. I called her several times, but all I received were a few superficial words. I secretly installed cameras in the living room and bedroom without Agatha knowing. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to leave her alone. Agatha's crazy actions, pretending to be blind, continued to increase over time, which stressed me out immensely. My insomnia was also getting worse day by day. On the 5th night of my business trip, unable to sleep, I looked back at the happy photos of me and Agatha, and I cried. A notification came through from the camera app, and I immediately pressed to view it. The screen switched to the app interface, and Agatha's painful screams echoed loudly, causing me to jump up in shock. She didn't appear in the frame, but the sound of her screams and the chaotic scene in the room made me panic. Agatha! I kept shouting through the phone screen, my hands trembling as I adjusted the camera's view. Suddenly, Agatha sat up with a loud laugh. Her long hair was disheveled, her clothes were torn, and her face had deep, hollowed eyes from which a lot of blood was dripping. Agatha's hands were raised high, two objects that were difficult to define. They were round, slimy with liquid, constantly flowing down. Her laughter gradually lost control, becoming frantic and delighted. I threw my phone away and clutched my head, screaming loudly. After calming down a bit, I quickly picked up my phone and called the police. That very night, I booked the earliest flight to return and arrived home by 9 a.m. the next day. After consulting with the doctor, I learned that Agatha had body integrity identity disorder, a condition where she had a strong desire to remove a part of her body. I had been standing in front of the hospital room door for over an hour. Although I really wanted to go in, I didn't know how to face Agatha. Everything between us will probably end. Body integrity identity disorder is a rare psychological condition where the person affected feels that a part of their body does not belong to them and has an intense desire to remove it. In the United States, This syndrome has attracted the attention of the medical community and society in recent years. To date, the exact cause of BIID has not been clearly identified. Some patients with this condition in the United States: Jewel Shuping, self-inflicted drainage fluid into her eyes. From a young age, Jewel had hated seeing everything and tried to imagine how happy she would be if she were blind. Chloe Jennings, white, lives in a wheelchair and uses a clamp on her leg despite being perfectly healthy. This condition severely impacts the psychological and physical well-being of those affected, requiring further research to find an effective treatment method.
I'm Melvin, and I'm 17. I've lived with my grandparents and Aunt Sam since I was little, and I've never met my parents. I've always felt loved by my grandmother and Aunt Sam, but not by my grandfather. I feel like there's always been a gap between me and my grandfather that just can't be closed. He's never really shown me any words of care or loving gestures. When I was 10, I used to run home from the bus stop all excited. The sound of kids crying left me feeling really confused. When I walked into the living room, I saw my grandmother holding a baby wrapped in a blanket, and she was crying too. "Come here, Melvin. This is your little brother, Henry." I was really curious. As a 10-year-old, I had a lot of questions, like why I suddenly had a younger brother, and whether he was born by our mother, Carrie.
You're not allowed to ask questions that go against any instructions from adults.
My grandfather's voice sounded really annoyed when he heard my questions. Aunt Sam quickly pulled me over to see my brother, but I was in tears because I felt sorry for myself and didn't really feel anything for Henry. I stayed in the room that my grandmother said was my mom's room, and Henry stayed with my grandparents since he was too young. I asked my grandmother about my parents many times, but she just smiled with a red, tearful face. My grandmother always told me to keep the room just as it was, down to the smallest details. The picture showed a very young and beautiful woman, and my grandmother said that that was my mother, Carrie. I don't have any information about my father, and neither do my grandparents. I don't share many traits with my mother, but resemble my grandfather more, and I really don't like that. I've had insomnia since I was a kid, probably around 7 or 8 years old, because of all the different noises. Sometimes it was the laughter of kids, and other times it was the crying and scolding. I could never quite pinpoint where it was coming from. I told my grandmother everything because she always listened to me.
Stop making up stories and asking for things.
My grandfather's voice sounded annoyed when he overheard me telling my grandmother that the room needed better soundproofing. My grandmother didn't have much of a say in the house because she didn't work. The whole family relied on my grandfather's salary for all the expenses. I saw my grandfather get angry with her many times, even throwing away the dinner she had just made because she mentioned my mother. She wanted him to spend some money to hire a detective to find my mother, Carrie. My grandfather didn't seem to care about my mother, so I could kind of understand why he didn't show much love for my siblings and me. Because I was really afraid of my grandfather and didn't want to cause any trouble for my grandmother, I tried to put up with those noises for many years. Sometimes, hearing the laughter of the kids made me laugh too. I also have a younger brother, Henry, but we always had to follow my grandfather's strict rules, so we were all pretty closed off. As I grew up, I always planned to visit my mother and ask her why she didn't bring my brothers and me along, or why she never came to visit us. One day, the family dinner took a serious turn when my grandfather announced that he was at risk
of losing his job. At night, I heard the two adults arguing about money and some illness, along with the sound of a child crying. I put a pillow over my ears, but I couldn't block out the annoying noise. It sounds like it's Grandpa. I sat up and walked around the room, trying to find a spot where I could hear the noise as clearly as possible. The woman's scream was really loud, and then the argument stopped. I had a lot of doubt about the man's voice. For almost a week now, the noise I've been hearing every night is a mix of a child crying and a woman's soothing voice. Of course I can't sleep. The child's crying might mean they're uncomfortable or sick. I know this from seeing my grandmother take care of Henry when he was little. She gently held Henry, comforted him, and sang him a lullaby with a worried and tired expression. A noise that sounded like a door opening came from right outside. I quietly went to open the door, and it was my grandfather. He must be thirsty. I figured that since there was a bathroom in my grandparents' bedroom, he wouldn't use the one in the living room. I followed him down to the living room, and instead of turning right to go to the kitchen, my grandfather turned left. I kept a safe distance so he wouldn't notice me and kept following him. My grandfather went into the basement. I waited until he was inside, then I hurriedly followed him. But by the time I got to the basement, my grandfather had disappeared. I walked around looking for him but couldn't find him, and I started wondering if I was dreaming. I decided to sit in a hidden corner and wait, and eventually I fell asleep. The sound like a lock made me jump awake. I was surprised when my grandfather appeared out of nowhere and left the basement. I didn't tell my grandmother, but decided to keep an eye on my grandfather for a few more days. For the next 3 days, my grandfather didn't do anything out of the ordinary and didn't go to the basement again. I was tormented by the sound of a little girl crying and the woman's constant cursing. In her scolding and cursing, she mentioned Mark, my grandfather. I grew more and more curious about my grandfather and was sure he was hiding some kind of secret. On the 4th night, I saw my grandpa pulling back a shelf in the basement, and it opened up to another basement behind it. While I was still in shock, my grandpa led a woman holding a little girl, and they both ran out of the basement in a hurry. The woman's face looked a lot like my mom's. I didn't really react, and I'm not sure what I was feeling at that moment. I just stayed in that corner of the basement until the next morning. The police, along with my grandparents, Aunt Sam, and the woman who looked like my mom, came back. With the police urging him on, my grandpa reopened the door to the other basement. 4 more people came out one by one, all calling the woman Mom and my grandpa Dad. My grandmother immediately collapsed and gasped. I ran over to hug her, and everyone was surprised. The strange woman looked at me, burst into tears, and called my name. The whole truth about my parents, the 2 people I had been longing to see for 17 years, was finally revealed. The noises I heard every night were from my mom and my siblings, who had been living in a dark, cramped basement. My mom had been imprisoned for 24 years by her own father, someone I didn't know whether to call Dad or Grandpa. I had 7 siblings in total. It should have been 8, but one of them died because my mom was abused while she was 7 months pregnant. My grandfather took Henry and me upstairs because the basement was too cramped and told us that my mom had abandoned us. I can't forgive the person who committed this terrible crime, but he did create my 7 siblings. Mother Carey endured extreme physical and mental pain. Even though she hated the person who took away her future and happiness, she always said that she loved and protected all of us at all costs. I love my mom and my other siblings a lot, for I'm the lucky one. I've decided to move on and live a new, happy life with my grandmother, Mother Carey, Aunt Sam, and my 6 siblings. But I never stopped wondering why my grandfather did such horrible things to his own daughter. The story is based on a real-life event about the tragic life of a girl named Elizabeth Fritzl. Her real dad is Joseph Fritzl, a messed up, creepy guy. He started abusing his daughter Elizabeth when she was just 11. When Elizabeth was growing up, she tried to run away from her monster of a dad a bunch of times, but it never worked. For 7 years, starting when Elizabeth was 11, Joseph started working on turning the basement into a prison. On August 28, 1984, when Elizabeth was only 18, he drugged her and locked her up in the dark basement. He raped her every day, and after 24 years, Elizabeth had 7 kids with him, going through unimaginable pain and humiliation. In April 2008, Joseph finally let his oldest daughter, Kristen, who was really sick, go to the hospital. From there, the truth came out, and the whole world saw the face of a monster. "Dennis, where are you?" I yelled, feeling so worried and helpless, looking for my 6-year-old. It was Sunday, so I took my kid to the playground because I promised him if he got good grades. Every time I went to the playground, park, or supermarket, I ended up playing hide and seek, all annoyed. When I run out of patience, I'll just call the radio station to find the lost kid. "Dennis, you want to make this your last trip to the amusement park?" I was so mad when I found him at the toy counter. "Mom, check it out, Giant Mickey," my son shouted. He was standing next to this man who looked like he was around 6 feet tall. The person had on a Mickey Mouse mask, but it looked all weird and messed up, just black and white. The black clothes and his tall frame made him look really giant. I figured he was a toy store employee. Out of nowhere, he hoisted my kid up on his neck and posed for a pic. The boy was giggling and threw his hand up like Mickey. I snapped a quick pic, helped my kid down, said thanks, and then we bounced. Lately, the local police are on the hunt for a murderer. Nobody knows what he really looks like. All we know is he usually shows up wearing a messed up Mickey mask in all black. I was totally speechless when I heard the news that night. I compared the footage from the CCTV the news showed with the pics I took of my kid that morning, and I just lost it and started crying. I checked my kid to make sure he was all right. Then I called the police to report what happened. My husband's away on a business trip, and it freaks me out to think my kid and I ran into that murderer. Please keep us safe. I begged the police for help. After the police left, I tried calling my husband, but the line was busy. I sent him a pic of my kid with Mickey and a message about what was going on, hoping he'd wrap up his work and get home soon. I locked the door real careful and checked it again. Then I hit up the store to order 3 more CCTVs and set up a time for them to come install them tomorrow. Out of nowhere, I felt like the house was way too big for just the 2 of us, and there were so many places to hide. I think I gotta call the whole construction crew to switch up the layout of the house. I went up to Dennis's room, and he wasn't asleep yet. I could hear him giggling as I got close to the door. "What are you doing, Dennis?"
"Mom, look."
I jumped and shouted loud. My kid was wearing a Mickey mask on his head and dancing around. I rushed over, yanked off the mask, and tossed it on the floor. Who let you play with these gross things? I shouted, my eyes wide and my finger pointing right at my kid's face. The boy looked scared and his eyes were starting to fill up with tears. Dennis ran to the bed and wrapped himself up in the blanket. I grabbed the mask and asked Dennis where it came from, like really urgently. But all I got back was my kid sobbing. I called the police back and handed them the mask. I couldn't calm down, and my body was shaking with every stutter. I asked the cops for a protective order, and they totally agreed right away. The whole week after that was just awful. My kid and I switched to online learning and working from home. Dennis wouldn't stop fussing and throwing tantrums because he felt cooped up, which was driving me as nuts as being strained by a 44-pound fishing line. My kid and I were getting more and more at odds and distant. He kept asking about the mask and wanted me to give it back. Stop yelling and acting out, Dennis. You still haven't told me where you got that mask. It's my secret, he yelled with all his stubbornness and bolted upstairs. I flopped down on the sofa, covering my face, feeling totally helpless. Dana, my husband called out. He got back from his 3-month business trip. I ran over and hugged him tight, then just started crying. After chatting for a bit, my husband said he wanted to head upstairs to see our kid. A few minutes later, I went to Dennis's room and Mickey, the killer, was right in front of me with my kid on his neck. Mom, Dennis waved, looking super happy. I'm back, the killer said, sounding just like my husband. I'm Dylan, 38 years old. I work as a financial analyst for a bank in San Jose. I don't have a girlfriend, nor do I have plans for married life. I'm quite introverted and a workaholic. Instead of finding myself a girlfriend and having sweet dates, I often work late at the company, sometimes even until night. One Wednesday evening, I remember leaving the office at 11 p.m. That day I didn't drive to work. I stood in front of the company to catch a taxi. It's strange because this area usually has many taxis, but today I've been waiting for 20 minutes and still haven't seen any passing by. After a stressful day at work, I'm tired and starting to lose patience. It's almost 11:30 p.m. and a taxi suddenly arrives. I can't wait any longer and jump onto the road to flag down the vehicle. The taxi driver looks at me with panic, probably because of my somewhat crazy actions. The driver looks at me and then looks over to the passenger seat, appearing very panicked and worried. I glance over to the passenger seat, and it turns out this taxi already has a passenger. It's a girl. She's leaning her head against the window, seeming either drunk or quite tired. The taxi driver lowers the window, wearing a black face mask. He looks at me with concern. "Sorry, sir, I already have a passenger," he says. I'm too tired to wait for another taxi. I suggest that the driver lets me ride along, and he can drop off the girl first to maintain the order of the taxi call. He looks worriedly at the girl for a long time before turning to me. When I offer to pay double the fare, he reluctantly agrees. Getting into the car, I smell a strong smell of alcohol, so the girl must be drunk. The driver asks for my home address. He says that my house is closer than the girl's, so he'll drop me off first. I thank him. Out of appreciation, I engage in conversation and ask for her name, but he doesn't answer. I assume he's tired, so I keep quiet. I'm a bit curious, so I observe the girl. She looks quite young, probably in her early 20s. Her skin is pale, and her long hair covers most of her face. Despite the hot weather, she's wearing a high-neck sweater. The car suddenly brakes hard, and everything lurches forward. The driver says there was a cat crossing the road. I hear the girl's head bump against the car quite hard, but she doesn't react, still deeply asleep. I want to help her sit up straight, but the driver immediately refuses. He uses one hand to awkwardly adjust her sitting position. After a while, I suddenly smell a strong odor. I'm not sure, the smell of alcohol is still very strong. I look out realizing we're almost home, so I proactively pay the taxi fare. When I say I want to pay through the ride-hailing app, the driver immediately refuses, saying I should pay in cash. I don't have enough cash, so I hope he'll pass by the nearest ATM. The driver suddenly shows annoyance, urging me to hurry up. I withdraw money as quickly as possible. When I return to the car, I accidentally catch a glimpse of the girl's pale face sitting in the passenger seat. I freeze for a few seconds, wanting to observe her more closely. Surprisingly, I catch the cold gaze of the driver. I quickly get into the car and pay the taxi fare. The amount I give him is quite large, and I request change, but he refuses, saying he doesn't have any cash here. The more the driver gives me a sense of unease. Finally, I arrive home. It's almost 1 a.m. As I get out of the car before I can close the door, the taxi speeds away. Entering the house, images of that girl and the driver keep appearing in my mind. After showering, I go upstairs and fall asleep immediately. The next day is a day off and I wake up quite late. I watch the news on TV and they report a carjacking incident involving a taxi company. The driver of that taxi was repeatedly beaten on the head and died early this morning at the hospital. Along with that serious carjacking is the disappearance of a young girl named Alida. Putting everything together, I suddenly remember the taxi driver and the girl from last night. I will call the police to report everything I witnessed, but my phone has disappeared. I sit for a moment, trying to remember where I left it. On the taxi, I probably dropped it when I got out of the car. I call the police on the landline, recounting everything I witnessed. Using the GPS on my phone, the police quickly locate the stolen taxi. It's on an empty lot 40 kilometers away from the city. The car is running out of gas and both doors are wide open. Inside the car, on the passenger seat, the police discover blood soaked into the seat cushion and dried. About a week later, the police find the body of the missing girl under a tree, 10 kilometers from the location of the taxi. The girl's body has a long slash across her neck, which is the direct cause of her death. Through investigation, the police conclude that the girl found under the tree is the same girl in the taxi that I met that night. The driver's name was actually her terrible boyfriend impersonating. His name is Gary. After getting drunk, Gary brutally murdered his own girlfriend and tried to destroy the body. All evidence pointed to Gary being guilty, but the next challenge for the police was to find him. There were no clues left behind, and that murderer seemed to have vanished from this world. I am still shivered thinking about that night. I sat with the body of a girl with a brutal murderer for 30 minutes in the car.
I still clearly remember that day, a fall afternoon in the suburbs of Minnesota. The dry leaves scattered across the path leading to Mark's house, each step seeming to disturb the stillness of the air. The chill in the air carried the smell of earth and rotting wood, drifting on the wind. I pulled my coat tighter around me, feeling the wind slip through the collar, bringing a vague but uncomfortable sensation. Mark's house appeared before me, an old 2-story wooden house, deeply reminiscent of 1970s America. The swing on the porch creaked in the wind, the peeling paint revealing the dark wood underneath. Every detail evoked a nostalgic yet slightly eerie feeling. Mark and I had many memories tied to this house. When we were kids, we would play in the garden or in the basement. I want you to help clean the basement. I think we might find some interesting stuff from when we were kids, Mark said. Those words sparked my curiosity because the basement had been the place we used to hide for hours, telling ghost stories and daring each other to walk through the darkness. But it had been a long time since any of us dared to mention it. We stood before the door leading to the basement. Mark's hand gripped the flashlight tightly, his eyes constantly scanning, as if he feared someone was watching. "That's the devil's domain," Mark said with a light laugh. But seeing the worried look on Mark's face, I knew the basement wasn't just a messy place. The wooden stairs creaked with every step. The flashlight's beams swept across the walls covered in cobwebs, revealing stains and patches of mildew. A musty smell filled the air, mixed with a foul stench, as if something was decaying. I held tightly to the railing, trying not to look down. The weak light from Mark's flashlight swept across a corner of the room, where a large wooden box was hidden in the shadows. The old box, its paint chipped away, looked as if it had been there for decades. Mark bent down, his hands trembling as he opened the box. A putrid, rotting smell wafted up, causing me to step back, my hand covering my mouth. In the dim light, I saw what was inside: animal carcasses, cats, mice, birds, stuffed into the box. Some were intact, but most had decayed, their fur matted together, and a dark brown, slimy liquid spilling from the sides of the box. My heart pounded, and a wave of nausea rose within me. Mark stood frozen, the flashlight in his hand flickering as if he too couldn't control it. "Isaiah," he whispered hoarsely, almost as if in disbelief. Isaiah, the 17-year-old boy with a cold face and empty eyes. He always kept his distance from everyone, lost in his own world. Mark told me that Isaiah liked to collect things that others threw away: old toys, bottle caps, and sometimes even stranger things. But this wasn't a hobby. This was something else. Mark confessed to me that he had once seen Isaiah kill a bird in his yard a few months ago. "I thought it was just a stupid prank," Mark said, his voice breaking. "But now, I'm not so sure." Mark's parents decided to send Isaiah for psychological treatment after finding strange drawings in his room, images of torn-up animals, twisted faces full of rage. I remember Isaiah's cold, challenging stare when he was taken away, as though he could see right through us. A month later, Mark called me. Isaiah had escaped from the treatment center. The police were notified, but every search attempt had been in vain. Soon after, strange things began happening in the area. Animals went missing, and their bodies were found in a state of brutal torture. The news spread throughout the town, but no one dared to speak Isaiah's name. One late evening, while driving past Mark's house, I saw a figure standing by the second-floor window. My heart stopped. It couldn't be Mark, and clearly, it was no one else but Isaiah. That night, I dreamed of Isaiah. He was standing at the foot of my bed, his deep eyes and cold smile on his lips. "Are you scared?" His voice echoed in my head. I shot up, my back drenched in sweat. Since then, I've never stopped feeling like I'm being watched. One evening, as I was heading home, I saw muddy footprints right in front of my living room window. I didn't dare to investigate further. Isaiah was still missing, and no one knew where he was. But I knew one day I'd see his name on the news, tied to a horrific crime. I am Claire Williams, 31 years old, the head chef at the Crimson, one of New York's most prestigious restaurants. I'm not arrogant, but I know I'm good. However, with my boss, Maxwell Reynolds, it seems like it's never enough. "It's too bland," he complained after tasting the foie gras pâté I had just made. "It needs something more unique." I nodded, suppressing my anger. This wasn't the first time I had endured Reynolds' criticisms, but this time it was different. In 2 weeks, the Crimson would host some of the most distinguished guests, executives, politicians, and a few Hollywood stars. This was my chance to prove my worth. "I'll create a special menu," I promised. "Dishes like never before." Reynolds looked at me with skepticism. "Convince me. If your menu succeeds, you'll get $50,000. If it fails..." He shrugged. "I'm sure you don't want to know the consequences." My throat went dry. $50,000. I locked the door to my apartment and placed the ingredient bag down. Inside were the freshest items from the market: black truffles, foie gras, and rare herbs. But it wasn't enough. I needed something more special. I opened the old notebook, flipping through the yellowed pages. It was my grandmother's cookbook, a Romanian woman with ancient recipes. She had told me about the special dishes her ancestors used to prepare for sacrificial ceremonies. The secret to flavor lies in sacrifice, she once told me. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I only knew that the meal that night was so delicious, I could never forget it. But as I grew older, as I began to truly touch the art of cooking, I gradually understood. To reach absolute perfection, sometimes a chef must sacrifice a part of themselves. The secret to flavor lies in sacrifice, she would whisper. I never fully understood the meaning of those words until now. With trembling fingers, I skimmed the pages until I found the recipe I needed. The Last Supper. The next 2 weeks, I locked myself in my apartment, only going out when I needed more ingredients. I experimented tirelessly. Each attempt brought me closer to perfection, but Reynolds was still not satisfied. Good, he admitted after tasting the 5th dish I presented, but still missing something. What is it? I nearly shouted. I've used the best ingredients, the most refined techniques. Reynolds smiled coldly. It's missing passion, Claire. You need to put your heart and soul into the dish. Heart and soul. I returned to my apartment, muttering those 2 words over and over. Perhaps that was what I needed. The day of the important dinner arrived. I arrived early at the Crimson, bringing a suitcase filled with my special ingredients. The kitchen was crowded with chefs and sous chefs, all busy preparing. Everyone out. I need space, and I'll do everything myself, I insisted. But Claire, we have so much to do, the sous chef protested. This is my menu. I'll do it my way. They looked at me in surprise, but no one dared to argue. Soon I was alone in the vast kitchen. I locked the door, opened my suitcase, and began to prepare. Today was special. Today I would create my masterpiece. The secret to flavor lies in sacrifice. A shiver ran through me as I felt the cold blade. I took a deep breath, trying to slow my racing heart. A clean, precise cut, delicate like the blade of a master craftsman. I clenched my teeth, feeling the muscle fibers separating, each small blood vessel leaking out hot, dark red liquid. The sensation was nothing like I had imagined. It was strangely satisfying. I looked down at the piece of meat I had just cut. It was perfect, tender, bright red, with perfectly interlaced fat lines. I couldn't stop. With the care of a master chef, I placed it on the cutting board, sprinkled a little sea salt and rosemary. The dizziness hit me, but I didn't care. This was the sacrifice I had to make. This was the essence of the art. I seasoned each piece with herbs from my grandmother's book, whispering ancient prayers. Blood dripped onto the floor, bringing me a thrill greater than ever. I was creating art with my own body. My heart and soul were blending into the dish. A knock on the door interrupted me as I was finishing the dessert. Claire, the guests have arrived. Reynolds' voice echoed through the door. They're ready to taste your menu. 5 more minutes, I replied weakly. I looked down at the completed plate of food. The starter was foie gras pâté with toasted bread. The main course was steak with a rich red sauce. And the dessert was pudding with a secret ingredient. I put on my crisp white chef's jacket and placed the dishes on the cart. A dizzying sensation hit me, but I pushed it aside. Nothing would stop me from completing my masterpiece. The banquet hall was filled with laughter and soft music as I pushed the cart out. Reynolds was chatting with a group of guests, a smug smile on his face. Ah, here it is, he exclaimed when he saw me. The special menu I promised. The servers took the dishes from the cart and served them to each guest. I stood silently in the dark corner, watching them taste the food. The first reaction was surprise. A woman in a red dress closed her eyes, savoring each flavor. An older man nodded in approval. One by one, they were all mesmerized by my dish. "Fantastic," Reynolds said loudly, raising his glass. "I've never tasted anything like this. The flavor, it's hard to describe." I smiled weakly. Blood was soaking through the bandages, but I didn't care. Only one thing mattered. I had succeeded. "We want to meet the chef," one guest exclaimed, and others joined in. "Chef! Chef!" Reynolds gestured for me to step into the spotlight. I stumbled forward, feeling my legs as heavy as lead. All eyes were on me. "This is Claire Williams," Reynolds introduced, patting my back, "the genius behind tonight's feast." The applause erupted. I bowed my head in thanks, struggling to keep my balance. "What ingredients did you use?" a woman asked. "I've never tasted anything like this." "It's a secret," I whispered, feeling the blood run down my legs. "A family recipe." Reynolds laughed. "Claire put her heart and soul into this dish," he joked, unaware of how right he was. I stumbled, almost falling. A server rushed to catch me. "Are you okay?" he asked, worried. "I'm fine," I said, but blood was starting to seep through my white chef's jacket. "Oh my God, you're hurt!" the woman in the red dress cried out, pointing at the spreading blood. The room fell silent. I felt my vision blur, but I still tried to smile. "This is my art," I whispered, barely audible. "I've sacrificed everything for the perfect dish." I slowly removed my chef's jacket, revealing my body covered in deep cuts, some still bleeding. Gasps filled the room. "Claire." Reynolds stepped back, his face pale. "What have you done?" "The secret to flavor," I whispered, "lies in sacrifice." Realizing the truth, one guest started to vomit. Others screamed. Panic spread as they realized what they had just eaten. But I just smiled. I had succeeded. I had created a dish they would never forget. A dish they would remember forever, even if they tried to forget it. "My $50,000, Reynolds?" I asked calmly amidst the chaos. "I've done what you asked." Reynolds looked at me horrified and disgusted. "A masterpiece," I whispered as I fell to the floor, blood pooling around me. "The perfect dish." As my consciousness faded, I heard the distant sound of ambulance sirens, but I knew they were too late. I had given too much of myself, and as darkness enveloped me, I smiled, because I knew I had created a dish that no one would ever forget, and a masterpiece that no one could surpass. Sometimes, to create greatness, one must be willing to give up everything, even themselves. I'm Logan, 37 years old. I'm driving to visit my daughter for our regularly scheduled visit once a month. She lives with her mother. My ex-wife and I have been divorced for 2 years. The highway, Interstate 95, heading north through New Hampshire, is deserted at night. I check my watch, 11:42 p.m. I expect to arrive around 6 a.m. Ahead of my car is a black sedan. As I get closer, my headlights illuminate the rear of the black sedan, and I notice one of the taillights is missing. A dangling white strip visible. Looks like paint. Maybe the driver doesn't know their car has a problem. I accelerate, pulling up alongside the sedan. I lower my window, waving to get the driver's attention. It's a middle-aged man with a gaunt face. He turns to look at me with cold eyes. "Your taillight's out," I yell, hoping he can hear me over the wind and engine noise. Instead of a nod of thanks, he stares at me with a panicked expression, then abruptly swerves, cutting right in front of my car. I slam on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. The sedan speeds off, quickly disappearing around a bend. That wasn't a normal reaction. Something was wrong. For a moment, I recall the look in that man's eyes. fear mixed with a brutal, crazed edge, the missing taillight, the streak of paint oozing from inside. I decide to follow the sedan, maintaining a safe distance so as not to be detected. My mind races through dozens of different scenarios. Maybe he's just some petty thief transporting illegal goods, or worse, drugs or weapons, or is someone locked in the trunk? Suddenly, as the sedan goes around a curve in my headlights, I see something protruding from the hole where the light should be. A human hand waving, as if signaling for help. I accelerate, trying to get closer. Yes, it's a hand. Probably a woman's or a child's. Without hesitating for another second, I grab my cell phone and call the police, my eyes still fixed on the sedan ahead. I think I just witnessed a kidnapping. I'm driving on Interstate 95, northbound, near the New Hampshire border. There's a black sedan, and from the taillight area, I saw a hand waving from inside. Can you read the license plate number? I try to get closer, but the driver of the sedan has noticed my presence. He suddenly turns onto a small road on the right, with no streetlights. I can't read the plate. It's too dark. But he just turned onto a dirt road. I'm going to follow. Sir, you shouldn't do that. It could be a dangerous situation. Please wait for the police. But I can't wait. Someone is in danger. Every passing moment could be life or death for them. I turn onto the dirt road leading deep into the woods, dark and desolate. After about 5 minutes of driving on the dirt road, the sedan stops in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. I also stop my car about 100 yards back, turning off my headlights and engine. Through the dim moonlight, I can see the man get out of the car, look around cautiously, and then disappear into the trees. This is my chance. I open my car door, step out, and cautiously approach the sedan, carrying a small flashlight I always keep in my car. As I get closer, I can see the trunk and taillight area more clearly. I shine my flashlight into the hole and whisper, "Is anyone in there?" A moment of silence, then I hear a faint whisper, "Help me, please." It's a woman. "I'm going to get you out of there." "Are you hurt?" "No, but he'll be back soon. Please, hurry." I look around the car, searching for a way to open the trunk. I try the car doors, but as expected, they're locked. I consider smashing a window, but that would make too much noise. I go back to my car, open the trunk, and take out a lug wrench from my repair kit. Returning to the sedan, I carefully wrap the wrench in my jacket to muffle the sound, then smash the driver's side window. The sound of breaking glass startles me, even muffled by the jacket. I quickly open the car door, searching for the trunk release button, but just as the trunk pops open, I hear a noise behind me. I turn around and see the kidnapper standing there, just a few feet away. In his hand is a large hunting knife. "Who the hell are you? What are you doing with my car?" I grip the lug wrench tightly in my hand, knowing I have no other choice. "I know what you've done. The police are on their way. You should just surrender." He laughs, a cold, deranged sound. "You think you're a hero? What do you know about me? About what I've been through? She's my wife. She betrayed me. She deserves this." And then, like a predator, he lunges at me, the knife raised high. I sidestep, swinging the lug wrench up in defense, only the sound of his ragged breathing and the clanging of metal against metal filling the air. I need to end this quickly. As he comes at me again, I swing the wrench at his knife-wielding arm. I hear a sickening crack, and the knife falls to the ground, but he doesn't stop. Fueled by pain and rage, he tackles me, knocking me to the ground. We struggle, him trying to reach the fallen knife, me trying to push him off. During the struggle, I feel a sharp pain in my side. He stabbed me. With all my remaining strength, I shove him off and swing the lug wrench again, this time aiming for his head. A sickening thud echoes, and he collapses, unconscious. I stagger to my feet, move towards the open trunk, and see a woman huddled inside, her hands and feet bound. "Are you okay?" I ask, my voice weakening from blood loss. "I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you so much." Just then, the flashing lights and wailing sirens of police cars appear down the dirt road. I sigh in relief, knowing it's over. As the police officers approach, I collapse, exhausted from blood loss. But I remain conscious enough to see them handcuff the kidnapper and help the woman into an ambulance. When I wake up, I'm in a hospital bed. Morning sunlight streams through the window, and beside me is Miranda, my daughter, holding my hand tightly. Miranda hugs me gently, careful not to touch my wound. "Dad, you're my hero." I smile, a wave of happiness washing over me, despite the throbbing pain from my injury. Welcome back to MHS, Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you turn to these videos as a gentle way to unwind and ease into sleep. So before you drift off tonight, could you help me with a small favor? Just leave a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. My goal is to hit around 200 likes within the first 24 hours. Simple actions like these help YouTube appreciate the content and spread the show to more people. Now then, let's dive into tonight's horror stories. Some stories stick with you, even years later. They haunt me late at night. The story of the Miller family is one of them. It's not because of how violent their deaths were, but because of what I found out afterward. That year, I was 23 and lived with my family in the quiet little town of Franklin, Tennessee. The Millers lived 2 houses down from us. David Miller was a mechanic, and his wife taught elementary school. They had an 11-year-old daughter named Lily. Lily was a unique kid. Her skin was pale, almost anemic looking, and her eyes were cold. She didn't have that carefree innocence you'd expect for her age. While other kids played outside, Lily would just stand by the fence, staring. I tried talking to Lily many times, but all I got back was an empty stare. That August, the distant wail of police sirens broke the peaceful afternoon. I was coming home from work when I saw police cars and ambulances crammed in front of the Miller's house. Neighbors were gathered, whispering. They said they'd heard loud bangs earlier, possibly gunshots. I was so confused and worried that I hung around to see what was happening. The police taped off the area, and about an hour later, 2 black body bags were carried out of the house. News quickly spread through the neighborhood. David had shot his wife, and then himself. Lily survived by hiding in the bathroom and calling 911. The whole town was in shock over the tragic event. Everyone felt terrible for the Millers, especially Lily. How could a child possibly get over losing both parents in one night? "Poor kid," a neighbor said, wiping away tears. I kept thinking about Lily being led out of the house. She wasn't crying, her eyes fixed straight ahead. At the time, I figured the shock was so immense that it had shut down all her emotions. The police concluded that David had suffered a mental breakdown due to work stress, leading to the horrific incident. At the funeral, I couldn't take my eyes off Lily. She sat upright in the front row, wearing a black dress. A lot of people from town came to the funeral. Everyone was crying, feeling deeply for Lily's situation. They came to offer her words of encouragement and hugs. But Lily just sat there silently in the front row, her eyes never leaving the 2 caskets. A few days after the funeral, her aunt from Memphis picked her up to raise her. Life in town slowly went back to normal. A few weeks later, a friend who worked at the police department invited me out for a beer. We talked about a lot of things, and eventually, the conversation drifted to the Miller case. There was something off about it. The bathroom door wasn't locked. Lily was just standing there, like she was waiting for us to arrive. There was no sign that she'd been through anything traumatic. "What do you think?" Ben shook his head, taking a long swig of his beer. "I've been in this job for 10 years. Kids who witness violence usually react in one of 2 ways. Either they're so shocked they can't say anything, or they scream hysterically. Lily was different, too calm. I didn't say anything for a moment, Then he spoke again. It's for the peace of mind of those left behind. They have to move on with their lives. The Miller story gradually faded into just another local tale, with people in town occasionally bringing it up, mostly curious about how Lily was doing now. 3 years later, a couple moved in and bought the Miller house. They started renovating the entire place. They left a bunch of stuff out in the yard and by the front gate for anyone who wanted to take it for free. I was walking by and saw a notebook in a box of old things. Curious, I picked it up. The first page said, Lily's Diary. My heart suddenly started pounding faster. I don't know when that name began to stir such mixed feelings in me. I turned to the next page, which had crude but chilling drawings. A man, a tiny child. My brain automatically processed the information in a way I didn't want it to. Below the drawings were lines of pencil writing, some pressed so hard they tore the paper. Dad hurt me again. Mom knew but didn't say anything. At this point, my hands started to tremble. I kept turning the pages. I can't run away. I screamed, but no one heard me. Mom said I had to be good, but why be good to bad things? Each page opened up a piece of hell. A sentence was repeated on many pages, each time written more clearly. No one came to help me, so I helped myself. When I turned to the last few pages, the true meaning finally emerged. The drawings changed. No longer a victim, Lily began to draw herself as someone with power. She drew her dad lying next to a gun. Lily wrote, I'm almost ready. They won't hurt me anymore. It will be like in the movies. I stood frozen, the notebook dropping to the ground. So Lily wasn't just a surviving victim. She was both a victim and the one who did it. Lily had quietly endured abuse. When she realized no one was coming to save her, she decided to save herself, in the only way an 11-year-old child could think of. Honestly, my emotions were incredibly mixed at that moment. I burned it that night and never told anyone about it. I decided I'd be the only one who knew the truth. Lily was living a different life now, and I was sure it was a much better one. The town was still peaceful, and the new couple who moved in, they were getting ready for a new life too. The best thing was to just let everything go. Life sometimes isn't what we imagine. Whether they are victims or perpetrators, everyone carries their own pain and untold stories. We can never truly know everything someone endures, and sometimes silence is the only way to protect yourself. There are some sounds you never forget once you hear them. For me, the humming of the Cyber Chase theme song outside my window in the middle of the night is one of them. 15 years have passed, but every time I hear that tune, I still shiver as I remember that night. It was the summer I turned 8. My parents were busy with their work schedules, so they decided to send me to my grandparents' house in Burnett, Texas. I was going to stay there for 3 weeks. My grandparents lived in a small wooden house, surrounded by a forest. Living with them was their helper, Aunt May, who assisted with chores around the house. The first few nights at my grandparents' house, I couldn't sleep. Everything was unfamiliar, from the smell of wood to the sound of cicadas buzzing outside. A few nights later, a new sound joined the others, a faint rattling outside my window. I pulled my blanket up, leaving only my eyes exposed, telling myself it was just the wind blowing against the window. After a while, it disappeared, and I drifted off to sleep. I still thought it was a normal sound around here, so I didn't mention it to my grandparents. The next morning, my grandpa took me and our dog for a walk. We walked along the trail that led into the woods behind the house. Our dog suddenly stopped, her fur bristling on her back, and started to growl towards a bush. "What is it, Cora?" Grandpa asked. I looked in the same direction and saw a figure standing still behind a large pine tree. I blinked a few times, thinking I was imagining things, but the figure remained there, just standing still and watching. "Grandpa, there's someone over there." But when we looked again, the figure had vanished. The dog continued to growl. "Could be a lost hunter," Grandpa said, and that made sense to me. That night, after watching Cyber Chase, I went to my room early. After talking to my parents on the phone, I got into bed to play my game console. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by a strange sound. Someone was humming the Cyber Chase theme song outside my window. I pulled the covers over my head, scared, and just lay still. When the song ended, I slowly pulled the blanket down. "Grandpa," I called out to him. "Hey, it's me. Come out here, grandson. I want to show you something cool." Maybe he couldn't sleep and wanted to show me the stars or some wild rabbits coming out to feed at night, things he often told me about. I climbed out of bed, opened the window, and looked outside. A figure stood in the dark, reaching out a hand. "Let's go, kid." I took that hand and followed. We walked a few steps on the dirt road, heading toward the forest. I felt a bit strange because Grandpa wasn't saying anything, nor did he turn to look at me as usual. The moonlight grew brighter, and I looked down at the hand holding mine. This wasn't Grandpa's hand. His hand was more wrinkled. I also smelled a strong scent of tobacco, even though my grandpa didn't smoke. I saw something black sticking out from the back of his waistband. It looked like a gun. I slowed down, terrified. Immediately, I felt a tight grip and was pulled forward. Just then, Grandpa's familiar voice rang out from the direction of the house. "Ethan! Ethan, where are you?" I immediately stopped dead. The man flinched, turning his head towards the house. In that moment of distraction, I quickly yanked my hand free and ran back towards the house. "Grandpa! Grandpa!" I screamed as I ran. Grandpa was standing on the porch, all the outdoor lights shining brightly. I rushed to him and hugged him tight. "Where have you been?" "What's wrong?" There was a man. I thought it was you, but it wasn't," I said. Grandpa held me close, then looked out towards the woods. Everything was just darkness now. Grandma and Aunt May also woke up because of the noise. Grandpa called the police immediately. They arrived and started searching the surrounding area. It didn't take long for them to find a man hiding in a drainage ditch over 300 feet from our house. The police also found a gun tucked into his pants. The man's name was Rick. He was Aunt May's ex-boyfriend. They had broken up a few weeks before I came to stay with my grandparents. Rick had followed Aunt May here and planned to kidnap me to force her to get back together with him. I didn't mean to hurt the boy. I just wanted May to understand that she needed me, Rick told the police. But the guns he had prepared told a different story. My parents drove all night to come pick me up. Although Aunt May had done nothing wrong, my grandparents felt they had to let her go. From then on, my parents rearranged their work schedules to spend more time with me. I still visit my grandparents every summer and during long breaks. I'm grateful that Grandpa woke up to use the bathroom that night and found me not in my room. If it hadn't been for his call, I can't imagine what would have happened in the woods that night with a man carrying a gun, determined to get what he wanted. I used to believe the small town where I was born was the safest place on earth. But then, one autumn night last year, a terrifying secret was uncovered that shook the entire town. What haunts me the most is who was behind it. I work as an accountant for a small oil and gas company in Marfa, Texas. It's a small town near the Mexican border. Everyone knows everyone. One of my mechanic friends is Roy. His garage is right in the center of town. I always thought Roy was a kind and gentle man. Not just me, but the whole town loved Roy. Until last autumn, when an incident changed the way I saw everyone around me. I had just finished my shift and was on my way home. I stopped to get gas. Across the street, I saw a chaotic scene. The area was cordoned off. There were many police cars and sirens wailed loudly. Then, I saw a woman wrapped in a blanket. A police officer was leading her away. The woman looked like she had just returned from hell. Her pants were torn, her hair was disheveled, and her face was gaunt. I froze, realizing that the place she had just come from was Roy's auto shop. In the very next second, seeing Roy handcuffed in the back of a police car, head bowed, shocked me. That evening, the whole town was buzzing about what happened with Roy, and I was no exception. The town's resident chat group exploded. Messages kept popping up. Everyone was talking excitedly. From the snippets of information in the messages, I learned that the woman's name was Hannah, a cashier at the local supermarket. She had only moved to town a short while ago and had been missing for 2 weeks. Everyone thought she had gone to visit family in Dallas. But what had really happened, we didn't know. It was all just speculation. 2 days later, the local newspaper published an article with a headline that sent shivers down my spine. Local mechanic accused of abduction and torture. It was just as everyone had suspected. The girl was Hannah. She had been held captive by Roy in a secret room behind his garage for 2 weeks. Hannah recounted that Roy had lured her into the garage, claiming her car had an urgent problem that needed to be checked. What Hannah described stunned me. The room where Hannah was held was completely soundproofed, with surveillance cameras in every corner. On a shelf were videotapes labeled with different dates and the names of dozens of women. Among them was Jessica, a young and beautiful girl who was well known in town. Jessica had disappeared 3 years ago. Everyone thought Jessica had left town to pursue her acting dream in Austin. But now we knew the truth. The police also found a notebook belonging to Roy that detailed everyone's habits. He knew their exact work hours when they came home, when they went shopping. Roy even recorded private conversations he had overheard. But that was only half of the horror, because those were the victims Roy had successfully executed his plan on. In the days after Roy's arrest, many other women came forward, stating they had been followed or approached by Roy. But as a beloved and trusted figure in the community, it was hard for people to unmask him. I started to recall the signs I had overlooked. Roy always asked too many questions about everyone's private lives. He could recount detailed schedules for anyone in town. At the time, I thought Roy was just a neighbor who cared, but now I understand it was a sign of systematic stalking. I suddenly remembered a detail from about a month ago. I was coming home late after a date with Sam and saw the silhouette of a man standing near her house. When I looked closer, the person had vanished. Now I'm sure it was Roy. It's terrifying that Roy had lived among us for years, receiving absolute respect and trust. The trial took place 6 months later, with many town residents and Roy's would-be victims present. He sat silently throughout the proceedings, showing no emotion. When his lawyer asked why he did those things, Roy simply said, "I wanted to understand them." He offered no complex defenses or explanations. Roy's statement silenced the entire courtroom. He didn't see women as human beings, but merely as subjects to study and control. Hannah left town right after the trial. Roy was sentenced to 25 years. His garage was demolished a month later. Now, it's just a gravel lot with weeds growing on it. The town of Marfa is not the same anymore. People have become more vigilant. Casual conversations on the streets have become less frequent. Sometimes the most dangerous person isn't a stranger in the dark, but the neighbor with a friendly smile. I learned that intuition never lies. If something makes you feel uncomfortable about a person, no matter how small, listen to it. Because sometimes the smallest details are signs of something far more dangerous.
At midnight in a fancy Houston apartment, Orla was anxiously pacing around the living room. The TV was buzzing with news about mysterious disappearances, and they still couldn't find the person responsible. Orla listened closely to the news, her face showing fear. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Orla was startled. It would have been a normal sound during the day. But it was midnight now, and the tension from the news had Orla freaking out. The knocking continued, and Orla walked up, peered through the peephole, and raised her voice. "Who is it?" Suddenly, a white eye appeared in the peephole. "Hello, I'm the building's fire safety maintenance staff." The sight of those white eyes startled Orla again. and she instinctively stepped back. That guy looked like he was trying to peek into Orla's place through the peephole. Orla was totally thrown off and answered with a stutter. Are you here to check the fire stuff at midnight? This is my last stop, trying to wrap up today so I can have tomorrow off. Hope you'll help me out. Orla was still really unsure and cautious, but the guy kept knocking harder, so Orla had to open the door. As soon as Orla opened the door, someone pushed it quite forcefully from outside. In front of Orla was a guy, around 40, dressed in a staff uniform. He said his name was Julian and flashed a big smile. He had a special tool in one hand, gripping the doorknob tight with the other and bracing his foot against the door. Seeing Orla looking worried, Julian said he'd try to wrap it up fast and head out, since he was beat after a long day. Orla stepped aside to let Julian come in. Getting inside, Julian didn't get to work right away. He sat down on the couch, checking out Orla's place with a smile. Julian started talking nonsense, acting all confident about it. Orla was still by the door, looking totally confused and worried. Orla kind of shrugged and gave short answers to Julian's questions, looking pretty uncomfortable. Orla reminded Julian to get back to work, and he instantly dropped his smile and stopped his rambling story. Julian glanced at Orla, a bit annoyed that she interrupted him. He got up and started checking around the fire alarm in the living room. Only then did Orla finally feel brave enough to step away from the door and head to the kitchen. As soon as she walked past Julian, he joked with her. "Do you know about all those disappearances lately? They're saying all the victims were young girls who lived by themselves." Orla looked at Julian's face and got chills, clearly worried. Orla stood there like she was glued to the floor. She kept her eyes on Julian, watching his every move closely. Orla noticed something weird about this guy, and to top it off, she was alone. Orla was trying to figure out how to kick him out of the apartment as soon as possible. After checking the fire stuff, Julian just walked into the bedroom without even asking. Orla was lost in thought, unable to react quickly. Orla yelled out, but Julian had already gone into the bedroom. When she walked in, Julian was grinning at her pajamas laid out on the bed. Orla nervously told the guy to come back tomorrow for another checkup. Julian, of course, didn't listen. He was being super sarcastic about it. "You shouldn't be alone, sweetheart. It's not safe." After saying that, Julian went into the bathroom chuckling to himself. Orla immediately dashed to grab a stun baton from the drawer, turned off all the lights in the house, and stood by the bathroom door. Julian didn't react one bit. With the stun baton in her hand, Orla could hear her heart pounding loudly in the eerie silence. Julian bolted out of the bathroom. He used his strength to overpower Orla and pin her down. Julian tossed the baton aside, but Orla was hell-bent on fighting back, no matter what. Julian ripped Orla's shirt, intending to assault her. His smile made Orla feel sickened. At that moment, the TV was still on, with more clues about the guy behind the recent disappearances on the news. Caught on a convenience store camera, the culprit is a tall, attractive woman with long hair. She was wearing tight black clothes. Julian freaked out when he heard the news on TV after coming back to the bedroom, like he just figured something out. He glanced at Orla and then the bathroom. When Orla saw her chance, she kicked Julian hard in the balls, making him scream in pain. Orla dashed over to grab the baton off the ground, making a wicked grin. She pressed the button on the baton firmly against Julian's thigh. Orla cracked up at Julian's agony. She stepped away briefly and came back with a sharp knife in hand, pointing it right at Julian's face. Turns out, Orla's the one behind the disappearances. In the bathroom, Julian spotted the outfit she always wore when she was up to no good. Getting caught by camera, she's been glued to the news, feeling all worried and unsure. Even though Julian kinda knew Orla's true self, he couldn't resist his desires. Thinking he could totally get Orla to give in, he didn't split right away, but wanted to mess with her a bit first. Julian was freaking out, bawling his eyes out and begging Orla to let him live. But with the icy heart of a killer, Orla's answer was a flat-out no. 2 days later, the news said another person had gone missing in the city. This is the first man to go missing out of all the cases so far. I'm Isaac, 40 years old, and I have a small family with my wife and our 5-year-old son, David. We were married for almost 10 years before we had David. David hasn't been as lucky as other kids. His brain development is slower than what's typical for his age. We still love and cherish him, and we want to give him the best we can. But ever since we had David, we have had a lot of tense arguments about how to raise him. My wife always wants everything to be systematic and scientific, while I prefer our child to develop more naturally. A lot of times, our discussions have turned into arguments, even right in front of David. One time, my wife and I got into such a heated argument that we ended up breaking some stuff around the house because I just couldn't calm down. David was standing near the dining table, trembling and crying because he was so scared. My wife covered her ears, screaming and crying. I figured the best way to handle it was to grab David and just leave the house. I drove him to the playground at the park, which was a few miles away. Sitting in the car, the boy kept crying and looked at me with a scared expression. I don't even remember how I drove to the park. Everything was so blurry. When we got to the playground, I tried to cheer him up by laughing and joking around to help David feel more at ease. After a bit, David started laughing too, and we played on the slide together. David ran through the colorful plastic tubes and slid down, and I chased after him, pretending to be the boogeyman to make the game more exciting. David was freaking out because the boogeyman was chasing him, so he quickly sat down, ready to slide down. I stood at the bottom of the slide to catch my son, but David never came down. I called out for David and started searching every corner. My mind was racing, and I didn't even know how much time had passed, but I was so exhausted that I just collapsed next to the slide. I woke up in the hospital with a doctor, a nurse, and some police officers there. Once I remembered everything, I quickly reported it to the police to get help. My son got taken near the slide. Please help me find him. Mr. Isaac, we need you to come to the police station to help us with the investigation into your son's disappearance. You're the main suspect in this case. I was stunned and tried to explain, saying I needed to see my wife because she must be really worried since neither of us came home all night. We need to keep you two apart for safety reasons. Once we sort this out, if you're not the one responsible, we'll let you go home. What the hell are you talking about? I need to stress again that my son is missing, and I really need to see my wife. A policeman came over to restrain and handcuff me, while the other one talked to the doctor. After the doctor gave a nod, 2 policemen walked me out. I was still feeling dizzy, so I got off the bed and just collapsed right away. The 2 police officers were even rougher with me. When I got to the police station, they gave me some kind of drink and told me to wait for 15 minutes before the interrogation started. My head was spinning, and my memories kept coming and going in a really confusing way. After 15 minutes, I was feeling more awake, and the police came in with a stack of photos. As I looked at each photo, my emotions just intensified. The first photo showed my car parked in the park, and the front of it was pretty badly dented and scratched. Next were some photos of the slide at the playground. Finally, there was a photo of me, covered in dirt and blood. What is this? Are you sober now, Isaac? I stared at the police in shock, then looked back at the photos. I grabbed the bottle of water I had just drunk, realizing it was a hangover cure. I held my head, trying to piece everything together. It turned out I had always been a terrible husband and an irresponsible father. I used alcohol to deal with stress and to justify my failed and miserable career. I constantly pressured my wife to have kids. When my wife gave birth to David, I didn't care about him at all. I was always half sober and half drunk, which scared and pushed him away. That night, I just couldn't control my wild behavior. Because of the weird prank and me looking like a real boogeyman, David panicked, slipped, and fell from the slide to the ground, and I hid David in the bushes, about a mile away from the playground. On the day I faced my wife in court, I couldn't bring myself to look at her, even for a second. We settled both the divorce and David's case at the same time. I lost everything and paid for my selfishness and carelessness with a 20-year prison sentence. I'm Elon. I'm a high school student in Houston, Texas. I'm an open-minded individual and quite enjoy extracurricular activities at school. One time, my class was informed that they would participate in a community service cleanup session at a local park. Even though I wasn't very excited, being able to run outside was better than having to sit and study, I thought. It was Sunday morning. We arrived at the park at 9 o'clock and were assigned areas to clean. This park has just been built in recent weeks, and there are still some areas in the finishing stages. Me, Anna, and Max were assigned to clean up an area with a very large rock. It was high above my head and placed in a small flower garden. I observed the rock and saw that it had a very strange shape. There's also a cross engraved on the stone, but it seems to be upside down. I told Anna and Max, but they didn't pay attention to what I said. I guess I'm no expert in landscaping, I muttered. Ignoring the stone's strange appearance, we started cleaning. Max and Anna picked grass in the flower garden, and I will plant a few new flowers. We do this while chatting about interesting stories at school. As it neared the end, I started to smell a terrible stench. It was really nauseating. Anna and Max also noticed that unpleasant smell. We went around the area we were responsible for to find out the source, but didn't find anything unusual. At the end of the labor session, all of us were told to regroup. My team has thoroughly checked the area we are in charge of, so we are confident that everything is clean. It was probably some dead mice somewhere else, and the wind brought in the stench. We told each other that and happily left. A few days later, we organized a picnic ourselves at the park we cleaned, this time with Ethan and Mary. Returning to the flower garden the other day, we were happy because the newly planted flower trees were lush. My friends and I spread out the carpet next to it, ate together, chatted, and took pictures. About 15 minutes later, it suddenly started to rain. We quickly packed up our things and ran to a nearby shack to shelter from the rain. Where we were standing outside the rock, a brown liquid began flowing out. The stench rose again. This time it was much worse. We were stunned to see that strange thing and looked at each other, confusing and scared. About 20 minutes later, the rain stopped. Me, Max, and Ethan came closer for a better look. Mary and Anna fearfully huddled in the shack. Even though I was scared, a feeling of curiosity was taking over me. Reaching out to brush a few flower plants next to the rock away, a feeling of dizziness immediately hits me. I saw human fingers crushed under the stone and they were decomposing. I screamed out in fear, almost to a panic attack, crawled out to yell at my friends to quickly call the police. The police arrived and immediately searched the scene. Max and I stayed behind to give our statements to the police, while Ethan took Anna and Mary home first because they were so panicked. The police found out that there was a body crushed underneath and immediately sent a tow to move the stone away. Seeing the entire scene unfold, I was shocked to the core by the corpse underneath. The body was no longer in one piece. It was decomposing. The stench and sight was horrifying to witness. The police thanked Max and I for the cooperation, then told us to go home first. Maybe during construction the stone was placed in a different position and collapsed over the poor worker while he was inspecting the project. So my feeling about the stone's strange position is correct. The man's body was processed and returned to his family. That stone was later demolished by the park management board and a flower garden was planted in its place. To this day, that scene still haunts me. Extracurriculars now brings me the dreads. I always imagined that I would discover another terrible thing around there. I'm Grace, and my family's just my parents and my twin brothers. It was Halloween night. I got back from my best friend's place, and the house was totally empty. There was a note from my mom on the dining table. "We will be at Mr. White's party, and we'll be back late. Handle dinner yourself. Do whatever you want. Go trick-or-treating with your brothers, or maybe come to the party with us." After reading my mom's ideas for a fun Halloween, I decided to just stay home. I wasn't into Halloween. No clue why. Was anyone else like that? I locked the door, hung the key in the usual spot, and went to my room to change. As I was buttoning my PJs, I noticed another note on my desk. "Someone's in the house." I frowned and let out a tired sigh. "Leon, Logan, are you two messing around again?" I was pretty sure about it, since I was no stranger to my two little brothers' pranks. I told them, "If you two even touch my stuff, you're dead for sure," while I threw a little boxing move to warn them. Then I crumpled up the note, tossed it in the trash, and headed downstairs to make dinner. When I opened the cupboard to grab some veggies and bacon for a salad, I found another note stuck in there. I read it in a sarcastic tone like, "It's just you and me here. Enough, you two. This isn't funny at all. Come out here before I really lose my patience." All I got in response to my annoyance was silence. "You two brats," I muttered as I walked toward the door, knowing they must have snuck back into the house again. When I turned the doorknob, it was still locked. I turned back to where the key was hanging, but it was gone. I almost missed another note that was stuck on the door. "You can't run." "Leon, Logan, I'm saying it for the last time. Get out here now," I yelled, really mad at those two kids as I kicked the door hard. I ran into the living room, and the bag with my phone was gone too. "What the heck is this?" I said, feeling annoyed, helpless, and a bit confused. Look at the ceiling. The note on the table made me shake, and my heart was racing. I took a deep breath, looked up slowly, and then just screamed. On the ceiling was Nana, my cat, with a knife stuck in her chest, like she was nailed up there. Leon! Logan! I burst into tears and ran upstairs screaming. I ran to the landline, crying and praying, and quickly dialed my mom's number. But it was quiet. The phone line was cut, and I was trapped in my own house. Oh my God. Please tell me this is just a prank. I was seriously scared and panicking. I dashed into my little sibling's room, hoping to find something, but it was all quiet. I cried even louder. I ran back to my room and locked the door tight. In a situation like this, I gotta stay really calm, I muttered to myself, my hands ready to rip my hair out. My heart skipped a beat when I spotted another note on the table in the distance. You're exactly where I want you. I covered my mouth, trying not to cry out loud, and everything started to blur in front of me. I looked around the room and then spotted the laptop. I grabbed it quick and shot a message to my best friend. This is serious. I'm not joking. Call police ASAP. Someone broke into my house. All I could do was hide in the corner, crying and praying like crazy. About 10 minutes later, I heard the police sirens and jumped up, rushing downstairs. I was crying and going on about all the awful stuff I'd just been through. My parents and little brothers got home about 20 minutes later. After almost an hour of checking every nook and cranny of the house, the police still couldn't find anything weird. Grace, behind you, Mom shouted in a panic. I was so close. Trick or treat. That was what the note stuck to my back said. It had been almost 2 weeks since Halloween, but I still couldn't shake off the creepy vibe from that night. I had to skip school to see a shrink with my mom, and I needed someone with me the whole time. I couldn't skip school anymore, so my parents and little brothers really tried to cheer me up. Going back to school after almost a month, I was super tired, and my face looked all worn out. On top of that, I got hit with a bunch of bad news. Lucy, my best friend, was taking over my cheerleading captain spot. Devlin, my boyfriend, also said goodbye and started hanging out with Lucy. Under the desk, there was another note that said, "You're now in a situation I wanted." Now I got what Lucy's smile meant that morning.
Hi, my name is Anna, 32 years old, currently residing in Illinois with my own happy family of me, my husband, and 3 little angels. The story I'm about to tell happened 14 years ago. It was in the summer, where I spent my school break working part-time in a nearby McDonald's restaurant. I often work night shifts. To make sure I'm safe from home to work, I often use my father's car. And that's when the scary things happened to me. I remember that was a super busy day, when even with a full complement, our chef was barely enough to cover all the guests. We closed down the shop 30 minutes later than our shift. I was totally toasted after such exhausting day. Due to being the closest to the shop, I was the last one leaving. As soon as I turned off the lights, I could hear a faint cry somewhere. It was 2 a.m., so everywhere around me was utterly quiet. I stood still, trying to lift my head to listen. It was clearly someone's crying, but there wasn't anything unusual around me. There was some rushed footsteps as well as if someone panting right behind my back. So I reopened the front door and peeked inside. However, there wasn't anything unusual. But I swear to God, the gasping was very, very close by. After a while of staring into nothing, suddenly I heard, "Please help me." The sound of a young woman rang out from there, yet it sounded twisted, as if went through 100 of sound filters. "Who are you? Come on out." After a deep breath, I bellowed with all my courage. "Santa, please, help me." Oh my God, that girl knew me. The fact that she knew me, or of someone I knew, twisted my guts. "Whoever that is, come on out now," I demanded one more time with all the courage I had mustered. Yet there was no response. Only a quiet wailing answered me. That's it. I had enough of their game, I thought to myself, losing patience. Plus my eyelids and soaring feet were slowly torturing me. So I closed the shop quickly and made my way to the parking lot. I made sure to have locked all doors from inside before turning the key. As soon as the car grumbled and moved out to the aisle, there was a white shadow jumped straight on my path, prompting me to hit the brake with all my might. "Holy shit!" I yelled aloud as my entire body tilted toward the steering wheel. Thankfully, I was conscious enough to not step on the accelerator. Yet even with all that, my heart was beating like it's gonna fall out of my chest. When I lifted my eyes up, I could see a young woman, totally naked, trying to stop my car from leaving. She's knocking on the door frantically, tears running from her frightened eyes. Took me a while to realize she was Nicole, my classmate. I immediately opened the door for her and showed her the blanket that often reserved for my sleep. Her body was dead cold, even though it's an Illinois summer night. Nicole begged me to call the police. Her mother and siblings needed urgent rescue. It took me 3 times to successfully dial 911. My hands were shaking with all the adrenaline and fluctuating emotions. Nicole wasn't looking so hot at all. After telling her home address, she blacked out completely. Her body was full of bruises. Something very, very horrible must have happened to her. 10 minutes later, the police arrived with an ambulance and paramedics. It was around 3:30 a.m. The paramedics brought Nicole to the hospital, while a police officer escorted me home. I was now safe, but I couldn't sleep. Nicole in her distressed state kept bugging me. The next day I saw on the morning news that a woman was shot 3 times and in critical state. With a gunshot wound to the head, it was a miracle that she was alive by the time the police got there. In the household, there were 3 other children of 12, 8, and 6 years old, bunkering up in their room. The 3 children were in a state of shock, but fortunately intact. The perpetrator was the husband and the father of the household. And the crime scene was Nicole's house. The revelation on the news stunned me. My parents suggested me to visit Nicole in the hospital. When I got there, she was in a state of shock and wrapped in a blanket. Nicole didn't react to any questions I asked her. It drove me to tears, more when I now knew what she had been through. Nicole was a beautiful-looking, active, and very friendly young woman.
Nicole's family has 4 sisters.
As far as I heard, they were of steps and half-siblings. Nicole was stepsister to the 12 and 8-year-old girls. The youngest one of 6 years old was the half-sibling of both. After recovery, Nicole told the police what happened that day. She heard a series of gunshots at around 1 a.m. After calming down, she moved to her younger siblings' room to check on them. But before getting there, a tall figure had entered the room. That was her stepfather, who barged in and tried to rape her. She managed to put up a fierce resistance, but to little avail. After a series of beatings and realizing she would soon run out of breath, she told the man to go to the bathroom to get prepped, and then sneaking out from there, naked. The rest of it was history. Not long after recovery, the little family was further torn apart from the death of their mutual mother. The monster that was the father was sentenced to life, while the siblings were designated to their respective relatives. Nicole and I, after the incident, we were getting very close. She was a very successful woman who was the bridesmaid on my wedding. Though far apart, her siblings remained very close, even though they weren't of the same bloodline. The pain might drive us apart or pull us closer together. It was all about how we handled our pain.
I am Alice, an international student at MIT in Boston. As an international student, adapting to life in a new country is always full of challenges and surprises. I once thought that St. Patrick's Day would be a great opportunity to immerse myself in the local culture and get familiar with life here. But instead of joy, that day became a memory I never want to recall. It was a spine-chilling experience that made me realize how fragile I am in an unfamiliar city. That day, the city was filled with the green colors of the holiday. Flags with the shamrock symbol fluttered along the streets, and people wore vibrant green outfits. I knew this was an important day for the Irish and their community in Boston, but to be honest, I didn't have much idea about how to participate in the festivities. Moreover, I didn't have anything green in my wardrobe. So, I wore my favorite beige sweater, paired with jeans, thinking that it would be neat enough for a day of strolling and exploring. I got on the subway in the afternoon, when the festive atmosphere started to become more lively. The train cars were packed with people, mostly groups of friends chatting excitedly, holding large cups of beer. The air was thick with the smell of alcohol and loud laughter, making me feel a little out of place, but I told myself I just needed to fit in and enjoy. I leaned against the door, trying to keep my balance as the train swayed. Then, I felt a strong pinch on my arm. It was painful and unexpected. I turned around, facing a tall man with a shaved head, wearing a green t-shirt. He was grinning lewdly, his eyes bloodshot from alcohol. "Why are you dressed like that?" he slurred. I took a step back, my arm where I had been pinched still throbbing. Around me, a few others were looking, but no one said a word. I tried to stay calm, pressing my lips together without answering, hoping he would let it go and turn his attention to someone else. But no, he stepped closer, leaned down to my face, his breath reeking of beer, making me feel uncomfortable. "Where are you from?" "Definitely not from Boston," he said, mocking me as he spoke. My heart raced in panic. Fortunately, the train stopped at the next station, and I quickly got off, escaping from his mocking gaze. I didn't think I'd see that man again, but I was wrong. That evening, I met a friend at an Irish pub near downtown. The street leading to the pub was quite lively, with groups of people dressed in green singing and drinking beer on the sidewalk. I tried to enjoy the festive atmosphere, but I still felt uneasy from the experience earlier that day. As I was walking past a narrow alley, a voice rang out behind me, freezing me in place. "Hey, you still haven't changed into green. We meet again." I turned around, and just as I had feared, it was the man from the train. The streetlights illuminated his face, and I noticed his eyes were even more bloodshot now, overtaken by drunkenness and aggression. He started walking quickly toward me, muttering foul words. I turned and ran. The streets were crowded, but no one paid attention to a small girl in panic. I ran through groups of people laughing and talking, my palms sweaty, breath coming in short gasps. The man was still on my tail, his shouts echoing through the crowd, but everyone just thought it was part of the festive noise of the holiday. I turned down another street, desperately trying to find a place to hide. The lights from the shops and bars weren't enough to make me feel safe. I spotted a small store with an open sign glowing and rushed inside. The man behind the counter looked at me, his face showing surprise. I was out of breath, trying to briefly explain that I was being chased by a drunk man. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged man with gray hair, nodded and pointed toward the back door. I felt a sense of relief and quickly ran out, muttering a quiet, "Thank you." The back door led to a narrow alley where I could hear the noise of the main street fading away. I kept running, eventually finding a public phone booth and calling the police. As I waited, I huddled in the darkness, my heart pounding, my ears still straining to catch any footsteps that might echo at any moment. When the police arrived, I recounted everything, from the train ride earlier that day to the incident on the street. They were very serious and immediately began searching for the man based on my description. I don't know if he was caught, but just telling the story made me feel somewhat relieved. The next day, I woke up with a sense of relief. My experience of St. Patrick's Day in Boston did not go as I had expected. It wasn't a festive day filled with beer and laughter, but rather a memorable lesson in caution and vigilance. I didn't want this event to haunt me forever. Still, the image of that man, with his bloodshot eyes and cruel words, lingers every time I think about that holiday.
Alden is a perfect guy with all the qualities that any woman would want in a partner. Especially at the age of 35, Alden's masculinity and maturity attract a lot of admirers. Alden is in a relationship with Erica, a girl who has everything in perfect proportion. On March 13th, will you be mine? Your heart will be mine. That is the sweet proposal Alden made to Erica. Unlike other couples, Alden and Erica have been getting to know each other for 11 months. Alden didn't have to persistently court the beautiful woman to win her over. Erica also did not pose any challenges or difficulties. In fact, she had fallen for Alden from the very beginning. Their relationship just needs one more formal proposal to become a perfect couple. Even though Alden has cared for and pampered Erica to the utmost for the past 11 months, Erica has also continuously given Alden the green light, showing her affection for him. But their relationship remains ambiguous. Erica is determined not to propose first. According to her viewpoint, it is the man's responsibility to take the initiative. Erica takes care of her appearance, participates in classes on sports, cooking, art, and more. She continually improves herself, setting the goal to always be perfect and attractive. There are also many suitors around Erica, but she only has eyes for Alden. As for Alden, there are times when he shows indifference in the relationship. His words are very sweet and loving, but they are also full of underlying meaning and a hint of teasing. But Erica doesn't realize this. To her, Alden occupies her entire heart and mind. Alden has not given Erica any confirmation, which leaves her constantly worried. Erica is very afraid of losing Alden. It's not hard to see that the women around him have feelings for him. Moreover, their relationship is not official and clear, so Erica cannot assert her claim. A princess is always associated with images of beauty and perfection, but it's not only princesses. There are also witches with an enchanting, deadly allure. Erica has a blend of both. She once planned and staged a car accident. The victim was a young and beautiful girl, and as a result, she was left paralyzed from the waist down just for standing too close to Alden at a party. Not stopping there, Erica did not hesitate to gift a few scars on the arms, legs, and even the face to the girls who intended to flirt with Alden. One rival, who is extremely determined, declared that she would confront Erica and pursue Alden to the end. She is Daria, who possesses everything Erica has and more, namely the allure of youth and beauty. But just a week later, Daria vanished without a trace. The police searched for Daria for 6 months, and the clothes they found in the forest contained Daria's DNA. But it still has not been determined whether she is alive or not. Are you satisfied with what you've done? Alden's unexpected question left Erica stunned for a few seconds. Of course, I'm willing to do anything for you. Alden knows something. He just smiled and nodded. The moment Erica had been waiting for arrived. Alden proposed right in the car when he brought Erica home.
Of course, she agreed without a second thought. But why March 13th? Why did you ask me to be your girlfriend on March 13th instead of today? That day is very special to me, and I want you to be a part of that specialness too. Alden's words melted Erica's heart. She loved Alden very much. On March 13th, Alden invited Erica to his home for dinner. Alden even prepared a beautiful dress for Erica to wear that day. At exactly 7 p.m., Erica arrived at Alden's house. As she entered, Erica heard music and saw romantic candlelight, which made her heart race. But she was very surprised by the happy birthday message decorated on the wall. Alden stepped forward, holding a birthday cake with a lit candle in the shape of the number 36 on top. "You didn't tell me your exact birthday. You are the most wonderful gift. Will your heart be mine?" Erica happily nodded and embraced Alden. After many days of waiting, hoping, and worrying, Erica became Alden's girlfriend. Erica can confidently say that they are a couple. They had dinner together. Erica continuously talked about their future plans and dreams with immense enthusiasm. Alden simply smiled lightly and did not respond. "Eat quickly, because you're about to leave soon." Erica looked at Alden in confusion, not understanding what he meant. "I will take you to a very wonderful place. Let's cut the cake first." Alden placed the cake in front of Erica. He went around to the back of Erica's chair, leaned in close to her ear, and whispered, "Are you ready?" Erica had no time to react. A knife was plunged straight into her left chest. An hour later, Alden stepped out of the house with a satisfied expression, his mouth still smeared with blood. Alden drove away with the body of a woman without a heart in the trunk of the car. The cycle of the next 11 months continued as Alden searched for another heart, the 13th heart.
I'm Elaine, 32 years old, and a busy single mother with a 7-year-old daughter, Mia. I'm happy with my current life. My career is on the rise, so I'm very busy, but financially, I'm comfortable. Mia is a well-behaved, thoughtful, and incredibly warm-hearted little girl. I plan to work hard for another 7 or 10 years, and then retire early to live a happy life with my daughter. I know Mia feels sad because she doesn't get much attention from me, but she has never complained or blamed me. She always gets high grades, behaves appropriately, and takes care of herself without me needing to remind her. Thank you, Mia. Thank you for being there and walking this journey with me. I hugged my daughter tightly and broke down in tears. "I've really missed you so much," I whispered. "Mom, I'm still here," Mia asked, causing me to startle. What I mean is, I really miss you when I'm at work." My daughter and I don't sleep apart. Having her by my side makes me feel more at ease and helps me sleep much better. One morning, on the way to take Mia to school, I gave her $50. "Sweetheart, I have a late meeting today, so I won't be able to make dinner like I promised. I'm sorry." Mia looked at me and smiled softly. "This is money for my dinner, right, Mom?" She took the money. "I'll go to Chick-fil-A and I'll invite my friends to join me. I'll wait for you to come there." "Chick-fil-A," I muttered, stunned. "Remember what I told you and call me if anything comes up," I reminded my daughter before saying goodbye at the school gate. Mia also likes Chick-fil-A, which makes me feel closer to her and love her even more. That evening, I picked up Mia at 9 o'clock, by which time the store was about to close. "I'm so sorry. You've been waiting a long time, haven't you?" "It's okay. I had a great time." My little girl always smiles like that. "Who did you have dinner with? Bethany or Santa?" "Those two didn't come, Mom. I made a new friend.
She's very beautiful. Is that so? She had eyes like you, Mom.
I smiled at Mia. What's your new friend's name? She didn't introduce herself, and I forgot to ask. But she promised she would visit me next time. Seeing my daughter's happiness made me feel more at ease as well. The next morning, I had plenty of time, so I cooked breakfast for Mia. As I was preparing a little salad, I heard my daughter talking. Do you like this egg dish too? My mom cooks it really well, right? Mia, I called my daughter. Who are you talking to? Carrying the plate of salad to the dining table, I saw my daughter sitting alone. My friend. She said the eggs you made are really delicious. Your friend? Where is she? Why did she come to our house so early? I asked, quite puzzled. She just left, Mom, Mia said cheerfully, then continued eating her breakfast. I didn't ask her any more questions, quickly finished my meal and got ready to go to work. But gradually, I realized that the friend Mia was talking about was someone only she could perceive. One day when I picked Mia up from school, her teacher kindly asked to speak with me privately. Mia has been showing signs of distraction lately. She doesn't focus and often talks to herself, just so you know. I was very surprised. I looked over at Mia, who was waiting in the distance. She was indeed smiling and laughing, but she was all alone. I thanked the teacher and promised to keep a closer eye on Mia's situation. I didn't rush to ask Mia, but silently observed her instead. In the evening, when I returned to the bedroom, Mia was sitting on the bed with a few dolls. She held one up, smiled, and whispered, "Do you like it?" I tapped lightly on the door so I wouldn't startle her. "Aren't you asleep yet?" "Mom, she's here. She said she wants to visit you." I shuddered, froze in place, and quickly glanced around the room. "Mia, what are you talking about?" "She's here." Mia jumped up and pointed towards me. "Right next to you." "Mia, stop it right now," I shouted, feeling panicked and raising my voice a little. After a few seconds to calm down, I gently asked, "What's her name, Mia?" "Her name is Mia too. She looks just like you, Mom." I went silent, and after a few minutes of trying to calm myself, I helped Mia get ready for bed. After Mia had fallen into a deep sleep, I rushed to the closet, grabbed the Ouija board, and asked myself, "Mia is still in this house, right?" The answer left me stunned, and I burst into tears. So my daughter has still existed all this time. She is the Mia I gave birth to, but lost when she was 5. The girl I have now, with a name and appearance so similar, I have adopted as my daughter. I hugged myself tightly, a mix of longing and pain flooding over me, unsure if I was strong enough to face this truth. But now, I know I must protect and love both children, the one in my heart and the one in my arms.